Hey everybody, welcome back to Sounds Like a Drum, Cadence Independent Media Production. Today, we're going to show you once and for all why you don't need to put a port in your bass drum reso head, even if you're trying to put a mic on there. It's been brought to my attention that an awful lot of drum sets that are being manufactured today, especially mid-level and entry-level ones that a lot of us are starting out with, have full front heads on the bass drums. Then we go on the internet and see people rocking out with their kits mic'd up in a studio or live or whatever, and there's a hole in there with a mic shoved in it. This would lead a lot of us to believe that we need to do that in order to get a great bass drum sound, and if we don't do that, then we're doing something wrong, and we're here to tell you that's not the case. Now, we're going to talk about the merits and the pitfalls of both a ported head and an unported head in a little while, but first, we want to get right down to the sounds. First up, our standard ported sound that we use here at the studio all the time. Today we're using an EQ3 coated white ported reso, a UV EMAD on the batter, and we have a standard pillow from your bed inside the bass drum touching both of the heads. This setup affords us great punch and a ton of attack because the hole in the head allows us to put the microphone partially inside of the bass drum to really focus on the zone of attack where the beater's hitting the batter head. At the moment, we have the pillow oriented long ways, which is to say that it is putting significant pressure on both the batter head and the reso. Now we're going to turn the pillow 90 degrees so that it's not touching the heads, but affording a little bit of muffling just by lowering the amount of high end that's knocking around inside of the drum, and give this a listen. Maybe not my favorite bass drum sound. A little more open, a little more oomph, and with some tweaking and some tuning, we could get a little bit more open of a sound this way. But that's not what we're here to do. What we're here to do is get into the idea that we can have full heads on both sides of the drum and still get a sound similar to this that's going to work in modern live and recording situations. There are a few reasons why a person might want to have a full head on the front of their drum rather than one with a large port in it. It could be something as simple as that you have a head on there with artwork from your band and you don't want to cut a big hole in the logo. It could also be that your drum came with a head like that and you don't have money knocking around to buy a different head. It could also be, frankly, that you want to have a little more tone in your sound, a little more fatness, and maybe you want a little less attack or maybe a bouncier, boomier feel on the batter side. Tons of our favorite drummers have played with full heads and actually not a lot of muffling in rock situations, in powerful, loud, aggressive music over the decades. And it stands to reason that we can do that too if we just make a couple of really specific maneuvers here. This is another in a long line of frustrating things that seem to have come out of online forum groupthink, which is that if you show up for a modern, say like a top 40 gig or something like that, or you're making pop music today, and you show up without a ported front head, that you're doing something wrong, that the band's going to be mad at you, that the sound guy's going to have an issue and not know how to mic it or be unable to mic it or something like that. And the fact of the matter is, we've been pointing mics at the outside of snare drums and toms forever with no problem, so why should this be any different? Some people even think that we are sacrificing somehow low end by using a full front head because the source of the low end of the bass drum is that column of air leaving the port and hitting the microphone, and that by doing this, we're taking the bass out of our bass drum. This couldn't be further from the truth, and both in my experience and in a lot of photos and videos that you can find on the internet anytime of people recording, especially in recording studios, they're using a microphone inside of the bass drum to capture the punch, for sure, and then they'll have a large microphone outside, oftentimes a FET 47, fascinating microphone, I recommend you look it up. outside specifically to capture low end to then mix with the microphone that's being placed inside that again is not there for the low end, it's there for the articulation and the punch. Now we've switched over to a UV EQ4, which technically is a batter head, but you can use anything on there, and this is a great one that we use often for reso. We've tuned it up, put the mic outside. Let's see how it sounds. Changes that we made along the way here to get the sound you're hearing now is that we reduced the tension on both of the heads a little bit because frankly we're moving the air differently now. You have to make adjustments. This isn't about achieving the exact same tuning or tensioning as we did before. Additionally, we went through a fair amount of experimentation with the placement of the mic, both where it is on the head and also how far away from the head it is. Our final location for the mic is centered on the head, about an inch away from the surface of the reso head. In order to keep a punchy sound, we retained the use of that same pillow inside the drum and oriented it how we did at the beginning of the episode so that there's a fair amount of pressure against both of the heads, giving them a significant amount of muffling. But in this case, because we have full heads on both sides, we're still retaining a tremendous amount of tone because with no port there, there's a lot less air escaping out of the drum, which is instead being utilized to move those heads and boost the low fundamental of the drum. This is one of the merits of using a full reso head. It actually gives us the opportunity to tune lower and still be functional and sound good than if we were losing all of that air, because the heads will start to sound slack if we don't have that pressure inside. Now, there's one final step missing to get us to where we need to go, and you may have never seen this before. I've seen it a few times. It's been suggested in studios to me. We are going to bail on putting the mic in front of the drum. We are going to move the bass drum microphone to the batter head on this side and mic it similarly to how we mic snares and toms. Now, before you freak out and start wondering if we're allowed to do this, if this is legal, we do this with toms and snares again all the time for the sake of what it gives us off of that head. In fact, we made a whole video about porting the bottom of toms and putting a mic in the bottom, and well, the proof is in that pudding too, so go back and check that one out because the results were surprising. What this is giving us is a beautiful amount of attack, plenty of fatness, and additionally, it's giving us the attack in the kick mic. The attack we were hearing earlier when we had the front of the drum mic'd was largely in the overheads, and that is totally fine too, but it means that we can't really manipulate the sound of the kick mic in terms of the attack because it's not in there. The tone is in there, but our attack is up here. Depending on what you're doing, whether it's playing a show or trying to work on a record or something like that, all of these setups can work depending on the results you're looking for. But if you're looking to recreate that punchy, clicky, attacky, powerful sound of a ported drum with a mic inside of the front head, it's as simple as this. Bring the mic around, mic it like you would any of the rest of your drums. There you go. All of these changes that we made between the tuning and adjusting the muffling and moving the mic, they got us to where we needed to go. So we need to make sure and remember not to be afraid to make whatever micro adjustments or larger adjustments might be necessary to get us the sound we need and get us the feel we need, rather than relying on a small prescription that doesn't take all of that into account. All right, now let's take a journey through all of the iterations that we did today, starting with the first one. Now that we know all of this, when you show up to your performance, to your recording session, you've got your low-tuned bass drum with full heads on both sides, and the engineer is walking towards you with a microphone, all you need to say is, can we try miking the batter side? Especially if you try the front and you feel like you're not getting enough attack and articulation. I love having full heads on both sides of the drum, not just because it feels great, but also because I feel like I can get more kinds of sounds out of it over the course of a gig and even over the course of a single song because of that added resonance. And this has been the solution for me for pretty much any time that I'm feeling like I can't manage all of that tone coming out of the drum. It's a beautiful hack and it works every time. If you feel like you want to go a few levels past this and get into how to internally mic a drum that has heads on both sides, there are some very sophisticated internal miking systems where your microphone actually lives inside of the bass drum in an apparatus where it stays stationary even when you pack the drum up, put it away, and move it around again. And you essentially plug a cable into the side of your drum, and then your drum is mic'd up and ready to go. This is a little more aggressive than things that we've done here, but I've seen it done. I've seen it at Gojira's studio. I've seen it in a lot of live situations where they need consistency. And depending on the sound you're looking for, that's another option, but it costs a little more than just moving the mic. It's easy to get mired up in what we think we're allowed to do, what we're supposed to do, and what is considered right. This is a perfect example of all of the possibilities inherent in trying to get a certain sound out of a drum while throwing away what everybody says is the right way or what we have to do. There are so many possibilities with every one of these drums, but the bottom line today is if you want to have a punchy sound, if you want to have clarity and articulation in your kick, just buying a ported front head or cutting a hole in it if you're feeling reckless is not the only way to get this done. There are lots of options, and with a little bit of tweaking and paying attention to what we're getting out of it and maybe doing something a little unexpected like moving the mic to the batter head, we can get there with very little muss, very little fuss, and end up happy in the end. We would also be remiss if we didn't say that we chose one style of sound to focus on today. The breadth of this goes to every style. It goes to all of the extremes of every country in the world, any music you can think of. So don't forget that this isn't about getting a pop sound out of a bass drum. This is about understanding how a bass drum functions and how to work around the things that it's giving you. And with that, thank you so much for watching. Please, if you haven't already, or if you have, follow the link to the Patreon below. It's the best way to continue to support this channel. Bunches of extra content over there. We're really proud of it. And we would love it if you would like, comment, subscribe, and leave us a comment about your experiences miking a full-headed bass drum on both sides. Did it work? Did it not work? What solutions did you find?